I have to give props to the Russian propaganda. Just like a broken clock is accurate twice a day, the Russian propaganda occasionally does get something right. For example, like last year, they were trying to fire, or rather to get General Zaluzhny killed. The Russian propaganda failed to kill General Zaluzhny last year, but apparently this year they've been successful in getting him relieved from command. General Valery Zaluzhny is going to be replaced as chief of staff of the Ukrainian armed forces by General Alexander Syrsky. So the rumors that the Russian propaganda was spreading appear to have been confirmed. Gotta give credit where credit is due. This time the Russian propagandist called it, and it happened. Okay, anyway, with that out of the way, hey there, name's Alex, and I'm no economist. But I'm also not a plane crash investigator. But even though I'm not a professional or very good at that, again, I must don the hat of the plane crash investigator because I have this nagging suspicion that the Russian propagandists are still lying to us. Matter of fact, I don't think Russian propagandists have ever stopped lying to you. And if you make the assumption that whatever comes out of the mouths of Russian propagandists, either the Russian state, individual people in the Russian government, Russian media, and Russian or even outside of Russia pro Russian propagandists, you can assume that they are lying to you. And I'm going to tell you that that's the safe assumption, and you'll probably be accurate 99% of the times when you make that assumption. And the 1% of cases, the one time that that assumption is incorrect, that does not invalidate the other 99 cases where that assumption is accurate. A reminder, if you see a Russian propagandist with their mouth open and there isn't a penis inside of it, they're probably lying to you. A case in point, a recent downing or crash of a Russian Ilyushin 76 IL 76 military transport cargo plane that crashed on the 24th of January, Wednesday. When I'm recording this, by the way, is the 13th of February 2024, so a few weeks have passed since then. But that plane apparently crashed, and the Russians are claiming it was shot down by a Ukrainian Patriot missile defense system. And immediately after that plane crashed, the Russians started spreading propaganda or rumors or statements that the plane was actually full of Ukrainian soldiers, prisoners of war, POWs, that were set to be exchanged for Russian prisoners of war with Ukraine, and that plane was traveling to a rendezvous point for a prisoner exchange that was set to take place on that same day. Apparently, there was such an exchange plan, but when that plane crashed, the Russians called off that exchange. So basically, the Russians are accusing the Ukrainians of shooting down a plane carrying their own soldiers captured by the Russians as prisoners of war. Essentially, Russians are accusing the Ukrainians of killing their own men. And why I find this rather suspicious. First, I'm going to go ahead and share a screen. We're going to be looking at, I want to share a tab. And so now you can probably see a map. This is Google Maps, by the way. This is Belgorod. This is where Ukraine is. Here you can see the city of Kharkiv, the city of Belgorod, and this somewhere around here. Let me find it. Yeah, this is supposed to be the Belgorod airfield where the plane took off, and it apparently crash landed. I'm going to find it now where it crashed. Yeah, somewhere around here between Korocha and Yablonovo. And I think it's somewhere around here that it crashed. If you want, the exact location of the crash has been geolocated. So, what immediately strikes you? This is where Belgorod is. This is where the plane took off. This is where it crashed. And you see that this is where Ukraine is. So this plane, when it crashed, was flying away from Ukraine, nowhere near, nowhere closer to Ukraine towards any sort of rendezvous point for prisoner exchange. So the plane was flying away from Ukraine, most likely not towards Ukraine. Now think for a while. When this plane takes off, if you've seen a plane take off ever, if you've ever seen a plane take off, even while a plane is taking off, while it's gaining altitude, it's already turning in the direction where it's going to be flying. So now imagine this plane is taking off, and how many seconds does it take before it's detected by Ukrainian air defense radar? How long before the plane is airborne that the Ukrainians can detect it? Then after that, after the Ukrainians have already detected this plane, how long before they make a decision that they want to engage it, they want to fire a surface-to-air missile at it or whatever? How long after that decision the order or the decision to take down the plane travels along the kill chain towards a suitable surface-to-air missile platform that can actually fire a missile towards that plane? And then how long before that missile is launched, and how long do the crew of the plane or any other supporting or land-based radar detect the missile flying towards the plane, so that either its crew or any other supporting system, be it ground-based or air-based, can notify the crew of the plane that it's targeted by a missile and that it needs to take evasive action, because someone will probably say, yeah, the plane wasn't flying towards Ukraine; it was flying deeper inside Russia because of evasive maneuvers. Yeah. So again, how long does it take, and what kind of evasive maneuvers would it take? Because in the whole process, from the liftoff of the plane, while it's being picked up by radar, while someone's deciding whether or not to engage that plane, while an order is traveling along the kill chain towards any sort of missile platform that can fire a missile at that plane. How long does that take? Because do you think there's sufficient time for any significant course alterations? I'm just thinking that this plane must have already been flying in the direction it had intended to fly in before there was any indication that a missile was flying towards it to shoot it down. That's why I want to just eliminate the possibility that the plane crashed where it crashed as a result of evasive maneuvers trying to evade a pursuing missile. I think that's evidence that the plane was flying towards where it wanted to go. Next, where are the bodies? Supposedly, there were 65 Ukrainian prisoners of war on that plane that were supposed to be exchanged. Also, the Russians released the names of the 65 Ukrainian POWs supposedly on that plane. Earlier, after the crash, there was speculation and claims that at least 17 of the names on that list were of soldiers that were already returned to Ukraine in previous such exchanges. But that turned out to be false. Apparently, none of the names on that list are of people that were already accounted for and returned to Ukraine. That turned out to not be true. But still, supposedly 65 Ukrainian prisoners of war, six crew members of the plane, according to Russia, and also three soldiers, Russian soldiers, that were guarding the Ukrainian soldiers that were taken prisoner. Now, that number of escorting personnel seems small, as other returned Ukrainian prisoners of war have stated that, for example, in their group of returning prisoners, 50 people, 20 of them, or 50 people, prisoners of war, were guarded by 20 Russian guards. So, three people to guard a group of 65 that might not have your best might not have best intentions for you and might be just slightly angry and might decide to try to overpower you. Three people might not be enough to guard 65 of those people. Even if you're on a plane, even if you might think, yeah, they wouldn't want to risk the plane crashing, how are you sure? What if 65 Ukrainian POWs are able to overpower three guards and then just convince the crew of the plane to drive where or fly wherever they want? So the group, the escort, three people seems very small for a group of 65 people, and that makes a total of 74 people that were on that plane. And supposedly they all died. But where are the bodies? If you're going to accuse someone of murder, like the Russians are accusing Ukraine of killing their own people, you have to present the bodies. The Russians are now stating that they're going to be handing over the plane, but nothing about bodies. And after the crash, five bodies were delivered to the Belgorod morgue out of a total of 74 supposed bodies. And that doesn't even account for all the supposedly Russian crew and Russian soldiers guarding the POWs. Now, Russians have been circulating footage from the crash sites, supposedly showing a severed hand here or there, a severed finger here or there. I won't be showing any such images in this video. Don't want to get banned or anything. You can probably find those videos on your own. And also, besides severed hands, severed fingers, pieces of what's supposedly a liver, a left testicle, an eye of a newt, a wing of a bat, essentially things that perhaps if I was in charge of a plane crash investigation and I was the one who gets to decide who gets to come near the plane crash site, those are probably things that I myself would be able to scatter around the plane crash so that they can be filmed for a short few second video that I'm going to later say, hey, look here, body parts here. So again, suspicious. I don't see that there's sufficient evidence to claim that there were so many bodies on that plane. And again, just five bodies delivered to the Belgrade morgue, and that same plane on the same day was actually returning to Belgrade from a flight to Iran. The plane came back from Iran, landed in Belgrade on that same day. What was probably carrying to Iran, what was it returning from Iran with, who's to say? And also, the size of the explosion has led many people to speculate that maybe the plane was actually loaded with S 200 or S 300 surface to air missiles that the Russians have been repurposing to use as surface to surface missiles to target land targets with reduced or compromised accuracy, mostly to the detriments of the civilian targets that they usually hit, because this is a surface to air missile. It has certain accuracy expectations when targeting air targets, but not so much when improperly used to target land based targets. And the size of the explosion after the crash seems to indicate that the plane may have been carrying missiles rather than people. But why? Why do you think the Russians are spreading rumors, still unconfirmed, about Ukrainian POWs on the plane? Because they want to divert attention. The fact that if we look again If we look again at the map, I'm going to show again. Yeah, Belgorod is at least 40 kilometers away from any Ukrainian held territory. The place where the plane crashed, Korocha, somewhere between Korocha and Yablonovo, that's also at least 50 kilometers inside of Russia, away from any Ukrainian held territory. So as as the Russians are claiming that they even have evidence, but they're probably not going to present to anyone, as they're not going to allow any outside investigation of the crash. They say that they have evidence that the plane was shot down by an American Patriot missile. And the reason the Russians are spreading this sort of rumors about prisoners on the plane is because they're actually very afraid. The fact that the Ukrainians are able to reach out and touch something that's flying 40 to 50 kilometers inside of Russia, away from Ukrainian controlled territory, is a scary thought. That means potentially anything flying relatively close to Ukraine, or 40 to 50 kilometers away from any Ukrainian controlled territory inside of Russia is within reach of Ukrainian, air defense. And that's a scary thought. That means potentially the Ukrainians can fire at anything at least 50 kilometers inside of Russian territory that gets airborne. And the downing of this plane, that's not something like Su-34 fighter bomber strike aircraft. This IL-76 is a cargo transport plane. That's used for logistics. The Russians use planes like this to ferry stuff, equipment, munitions, weapons, and even people to and from locations inside Russia, close to the front lines or in occupied territory. This is a potential strike on Russian logistics capabilities. They will either have to be more careful and not fly things, not use planes to transport things that close to where Ukrainians can hit them, probably use land based transport, which may be slower and may result in having to deliver things on multiple trucks rather than on one airplane. And anyway, that will be a detriment to their logistics capabilities, their abilities to ferry people and material around. And that's why I think the Russians are scared and they're trying to spin the narrative about Ukrainian POWs being on that plane. And I think it's bullshit because, yeah, Russians are trying to cover their asses because they know anything even 50 kilometers deep inside of their territory, the Ukrainians can reach out and touch it and take it down. Anyway, this has been all I have for this video. Like it if you've liked it. Drop me a comment below. Tell me how I have zero understanding about aviation or air defense or air combat or anything like that. Go ahead. Tell me in the comments how little understanding I have on the subject matter. You can subscribe to this channel, share this video around, show it to other people. And if you subscribe to the channel, you may see my future videos, more videos to come. More the next few video topics maybe I have in mind are probably going to be in Bulgarian, but still, if you're a Bulgarian viewer, you can watch those. If you're an English speaker, maybe you'll find subtitles or whatever. And also links to support the channel are below in the description. And I think that's all for now. See you later. And don't trust the Russian propagandists.